All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning and good evening to the folks who are joining us today from a different time zone. First of all, thank you for joining the webinar today. And the topic is understanding your product's user behavior. I'm Suresh Kumar, Associate Director, Product Organization here at Regalix. Regalix is an award-winning global digital strategy and services firm that leverages technology and marketing to help companies grow. We create successful ventures with clients through co-innovation and idea-driven frameworks that inspires companies think differently. Again, welcome to the webinar, and let's jump right into the session. Today we are going to cover three major topics. The first thing is about identifying primary supplemental needs of users and the bounce factors. And we are going to talk about the ways to segment your product users and creating productive user engagement for user retention. First of all, why do we need to understand the product users? There are about 3 billion global internet users across the globe, and it's still counting. This number increases steadily by 10% over year on year. Easier online access enables people to use digital products across desktop, mobile more than ever. But unfortunately, that means it's only getting harder for the software companies to stand out from the competition and keep users interested in the product. You need a solid grasp of how people are currently using your product. This will help you choose the right time frames for your metrics as well. For example, when I say metrics, so whether you should be looking at daily, monthly, or a weekly metrics to figure out your strategies for both user acquisition and retention. Yeah, it sounds really important, but how do we understand the user needs? By measuring your product's primary feature and its usage interval, and also by identifying supplemental features and their usage intervals, and investigate the bounce factors through analytics like in-app analytics and your inactive users behaviors, all these things. Let's talk about what your primary feature is and how often users naturally come back to your product. A primary feature is an action that users take within your product that aligns closely with your core value proposition. Chances are you probably already know that your primary feature is. It's the action that you wanted to drive your users towards and get them to perform. So in order to determine your primary feature, here are some of the things you should ask yourself. What is the one actions that you want your users to do every time when they log into your product or when they use your product? What metrics do you care about as a company? Let's talk with an example. For example, I hope you all know about kayak.com. So it's an online product where you can find the best deals on flights, hotels, and rental cars, and you can go ahead and book that. So the primary feature here is making a booking, and the supplemental feature is organizing your trips in one place. So this is the difference between a primary and supplemental product for supplemental features. You may ask how many primary feature a product can have. There is no direct answer to this question, but it's always good to have one feature per core product offering. For most of the companies, this means just one, but in some rare cases, it may be appropriate to have multiple critical events. So the most common example would be two-sided marketplaces like Amazon, so which will have two distinct product flows, like one is for the buyers and another one is for selling. For example, these products users tend to fall into one group or the other. So it makes sense to have two critical events and analyze these separately. So Moving on to the product usage intervals. So first we see what is the product primary features, then what is the product usage interval. So it's a frequency with which you expect people to use your product, like daily, weekly, or monthly. So there are some products which people use daily, something like a social media app and your email where you'll use day-to-day operations. But the optimum usage interval is for most of the products is considered between 60 to 90 days. So that's how you calculate your optimum usage interval. Because why we are using this 60 to 90 days usage intervals? Because rarely the usage go beyond 1 month. This means we expect users to perform the critical events at least twice within the 60 days. So as I mentioned, there are different sets of products that requires daily usage. There are other products which requires weekly, and some products monthly, and etc. But in the overall usage interval can be calculated in the gap between 60 to 90 days. So in the earlier example, what we saw, the kayak.com, to understand how often the user returned to booking a flight or booking a hotel. So we need to define a cohort of users who were active during the 60 days under consideration. Not newly acquired in this period, but only active during this 60 days period. Then identify the list of users who have completed the booking and who have exited the app and completed another booking. Then you can go ahead and plot a graph and identify the intervals. So you can generally, it's a rule of thumb. Identifying the time interval at which 70 to 80% of your users have repeated the primary features. This is your product user interval, because this is how we do it, and we were able to identify the exact and the optimum usage interval. So identifying the time interval at which 70 to 80% of your users have repeated the primary feature is your product usage interval. So you can't draw a conclusion about your retention strategy without first having an understanding on your product usage interval, because this is a critical piece before you get into that retention strategy. Great. So we have pretty much covered our first point on this. Let's move on to the next one. Now that we have a clear understanding on why and how we understand user needs, it's time to understand users' persona and how do we segment them. So basically we do it in three major ways. One is segment users by usage, and bucket users based on the frequency at which they perform key events, certain key functions. Then you can also group users derived from similarity in the behavior. So these are all the major segmentation strategies. Let's talk about the first one, segment users by type. So the majority of the users are segmented in these 4 types: new users, active users who are important to any product, inactive users, and returned users. So active users who have been using your product consistently for some period of time, that they are called as active users. And new users who are using your product for the first time. And the inactive users who were once actively using your product and then became inactive. And returned users who were once actively using your product who then became inactive for a period of time and then became active again. So this grouping will definitely help you in segmenting your users in a right way, and you can form a lot of retention strategies based on that, because the user flow starts from new user to active users, and it can go to inactive users, or it can stay as active users, and also returned users can become an active user as well. So the center and the important users are going to be active users. Of course, we need to focus on the returned and inactive users as well, but the focus is more on the active users, because you can further classify these active users into a different level. Like active users can be classified into three major categories. One is the power user, another is the core user, and another one is a passive user. Let's talk about each and every category in detail. So for most products, you can think about bucketing users into these three major things. So think about whether it makes sense in your case, because it can vary in different products. So you can also have multiple personas in each category. For example, of 2 types of core users who have distinct use cases, right? So let's start with the power users. The people who use your product with a very high frequency or use a power feature that the majority of the users don't take advantage of. So let's take an example where there are functionalities where you can go through a regular route. For example, in order to find a specific booking, I can go to a search and I always select the date and other things. But there will be an option where you can save your search and you can go back quickly by single click. Those kind of users who knows some of the power usage of your product are called as a power users. And the core users, people who are using your app at a regular frequency and in the expected way. So something like the same example, let's go back to the Kayak example. So my primary, in Kayak, the primary feature is, so I can go search for a hotel or a flight or car by selecting a place and from on 2 days and hit the search button. This is the way that the app is expected to, the app users are expected to behave. So the users who always use the regular flow continuously, they are called as a core users. And the passive users, these are all the people who might not be using your app in the core way that you designed, but are still coming back at a regular frequency, do something. Something like this user will come back and they'll just search and they don't book. And again, they'll come back and they change some of the matrices and they'll browse through different features and they don't complete the primary features end goal. So those are all the users who are passive users. So we have included some of real examples of behavioral personas. We have talked about the behavioral personas also in the topic, but how they are going to be useful in the retention strategy is what we are going to see in the next one. So user engagement strategies for retention. So you can ask why are we always focusing on the retention? Because user usage acquisition is also important. That's a different thing altogether, but the retention is more than important. That's why we say, so at a high level, any product at a high level, retention is a measure of how many users return to your product over a time. Even the best products lose the majority of their users in just a few days. But if you make a retention your primary growth metric, you can change the trajectory of your company from one that stalls or loses users over time to one that sustains users growth. Okay, so that's why we are always focusing on user engagement strategies for retention. So there are different key ways in which you can manage your retention strategy, but these are all the few ones we always suggest. The first one is like shape your product to provide the best possible experience for users. So based on your understanding about your users' needs and based on your segmentation, you can definitely shape your product to provide the best possible user experience. So that's one strategy, and you can work on that strategy. Another one is get a more nuanced understanding of your retention and find the areas of your product you can improve. This is one level deep to understand how do you retain your customers, because this is where the product-specific analytics and informations play major role. So there are, lots of arithmetic and scientific methods that will help you to do this, but we are not going to talk about that because it's a really a big one that requires another webinar altogether. So there are ways in which you can understand the nuance of your individual retention against individual user groups. Then you can go ahead with that approach. And the last one is predictive user engagement based on the behavioral persona. So you can group your users based on the behavioral persona and start creating content and start engaging the users towards that, and try to analyze the content usage and create your strategy. Understand where the users are going through and what is the entire user behavior, all the things. I would say the third one can be an input to the second one, because this third one can yield lots of analytical information that you can use it as a part of the second strategy. So how do you do this productive user engagements? So as I said before, there are different ways of grouping things, like demographic grouping and the behavioral grouping. So you can group your users in a different way apart from your regular usage type grouping, and go ahead and create bite-sized content and explainer videos or product demos or product walkthroughs to engage those users. So they are really a great marketing tools, because it's a great way of introducing your existing clients to a new product that you're introducing to the market. And also it connects with customers mental model, what exactly that they are looking at. We have a platform at Regalix, it's called ShareDemos. So it's an enablement solution for sales and the technical marketing teams. So this is a time-saving solutions to create walkthroughs and bite-sized content, which is searchable content, and this is and your customer can understand your product and solution better using this platform. And you can also get some early signs on areas of traction and the customer behavior with the help of inbuilt analytics that we have. So through this product, you can do a lot of things, like create content creations. You can create original content of any kind, like be it an image, be it a video, or be it a product walkthroughs, and you can also create a HTML content. And also you can edit existing content, and you can also import existing content in a different format into this platform to create your own content. And you can also track some all your content that you have created, like rich analytics on content consumption and full versus partial consumption, and geo-based consumption data, and reports on search with null search highlighted. All these things can be done through the inbuilt tracking and analytics. Also, we have a strong content sharing methodology, with this like you can share freely with your customers or not, or put behind any enterprise SSO for field and the partner personas only, or some content can be accessed only to the registered users. And this content is mobile enabled, and you can access it from any device as well. So apart from the regular usage, we do have an app on top of this platform, which can help you to achieve lots of different goals. For example, there is an app called Pathfinder that creates a playlist for available content based on the search, and there are apps which creates flashcards and quizzes to check and enforce learning. With that, I'd like to thank you for following this webinar, and invite you all to explore how ShareDemos can help you in your product, your product marketing and enablement journey. So you can sign up for a free trial at ShareDemos.com, and be in touch with me for any question regarding ShareDemos at skumar@regalix-inc.com. Thank you, everyone.